Salutations and welcome, friends. I'm your host to this very special Trust the Profits Kentucky Derby Spotlight video. My name is Matthew DeSantis. You can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailToMenace. Joined as always by my friend El Hombre. Hombre, we are here to do a spotlight video on Skinner, but we would be remiss if we did not mention why Skinner is now in the Kentucky Derby field, and that is because news broke early on Thursday morning that very sadly, the Kentucky Derby entrant Wild on Ice, who won the Sunland Derby, was pulled up during his final workout over the Churchill Downs surface, vanned off, and we found out later he was euthanized due to a pretty severe lower leg problem. And obviously, a very sad situation for Wild on Ice to be euthanized. We obviously send our condolences, thoughts, and prayers to the connections and to all the people who cared for him. But ultimately, this allowed for Skinner to draw into the race. And so a lot of people might not know much about that horse. That's why we wanted to do this video. But obviously, sending our condolences to the connections of Wild on Ice.
Yeah, it's a sport. I mean, I've always been a fan of horse racing and auto racing and football and many other sports where this is an unfortunate dark side of the sport. I mean, it's terrible to see something like this happen. It does happen. I mean, we saw it in football with Hamlin this year where he almost died on the field. We see it in auto racing every once in a while. I mean, there's not much we can say about it, but I mean, it is an unfortunate downside of the sport. This is an athletic game. It's racing. Horses are pushed to their limits. It sucks.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
With that, let's look at brighter things. We're not here to have a depressing party here tonight, but
yeah,
it does suck, man. Super sad.
It does. And it's got to be tough for the connections of Skinner, who's the focus of our spotlight as well. I mean, I'm sure they were very anxious to try to get into the race, but obviously they don't want to get in this way into the race. And so a very tough situation for them. But this is a really intriguing horse and one that now that he's drawn in, I feel like has already gotten a lot of buzz as a potential wise guy horse running out in that California circuit, has finished third the last couple of times out. But you know, I know you're a big fan of Curlin, and this is a John Sheriff's trained horse, and he's got the pedigree to suggest that he's a real threat here in the Kentucky Derby.
Well, I like Skinner. I'm just going to say it. I like Skinner more than Practical Move, and I like to go Rocket Ride more than Practical Move too, who's also been pulled out of the off the trail. But I do like Skinner a lot. I think Skinner's dangerous, and here's why. I mean, the speed figures again inflated because of Santa Anita. But he has been like right there with Practical Move. The difference being because he finished a length or less than a length behind him the last two times out, he's going to get a giant price. And I just don't think there's that much difference between him and Practical Move to justify betting Practical Move at like a 8-1, 10-1 type price where Skinner's going to be 30-1.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point that he's a horse that really has been running on the wrong type of track. Santa Anita, very speed favoring track. It favors horses like a Go Rocket Ride or a Practical Move who are out there up on the front. Skinner really is a come from behind horse. He's more of a closer, and he's got that Curlin pedigree that would suggest the more distance you want to give him, the better off he's going to be. And he comes charging late, whether the pace is strong or whether it's soft. He's going to make that run. But when you're doing it at Santa Anita, that's really difficult because front end speed holds on really well. And you saw Practical Move just barely hold on. That was really almost a three-way photo finish in that Santa Anita Derby between Practical Move, the Japanese horse Mandarin Hero, and Skinner. The other thing that's intriguing about this horse is feels like he is a horse, and that's a credit really to John Sheriff's, matured massively between 2 and 3. He was a 2-year-old who was running in these Del Mar Futurity, the American Pharaoh, but was really an afterthought in a lot of those races and was running up against those Baffert monsters, Cave Rock and National Treasure, and having a meltdown. And then all of a sudden took a 4-month layoff and came back and finally broke his maiden, and just seems like he's become a totally different horse as a 3-year-old. And we should mention he had been having Victor Espinoza as his jockey, but it was announced when he drew into the field that Juan Hernandez is taking over as the jockey for Skinner. So I think that a lot of things to like here with this particular horse.
Yeah, full disclosure, although I like Skinner and he's going to be a big price, I don't think I'm going to put him on any of my tickets. But I'm not putting Practical Move or any of the California horses on my tickets at all, for that matter. But I do think he's a very interesting draw in here. I mean, definitely add some intrigue if you believe in Practical Move. I mean, he's right there with him, right? I mean, he's so close. He's been within a length of him the last 2 times out. If he can take even a minor step forward, and with the Kentucky Derby being a 20-horse field that has wild, variables, why couldn't Skinner get to the same point as Practical Move, or maybe even beat him? So that's interesting, because you're going to get, what do you think, 40 to 1, maybe more?
I don't know. I mean, I've already started to see some wise guy comments around Skinner that, well, he's this kind of wise guy horse. He's kind of taken the Mage spot a little bit. I think we all thought Mage was a little bit of a wise guy horse that was going to get bet down. Now there's some talk, is Skinner the wise guy horse? Listen, you're going to get at least 20 to 1.
Please.
Yeah, you're going to get at least 20 to 1, I think. Maybe you get 30. I don't know. I mean, the Kentucky Derby board is always bananas. I mean, remember, Happy Jack was 19 to 1 last year for absolutely no good reason. Horse should have been 90. Rich Strike should have been a shorter price than Happy Jack.
Sidebar, please, everybody, if you're out there listening, thank you for listening. Everybody, please hammer Skinner real hard. I want him to go off at 19 to 1 as well.
But it's interesting. I do think that California circuit has been viewed as rather watered down this year. Obviously, you had the Baffert suspensions. A lot of his best horses, some might say, weren't even on the trail. Faustin and Cave Rock have been in witness protection program. We have no idea where they are. Then you have a horse like National Treasure, who got dinged up, it feels like, in one of the workouts before this San Felipe got withdrawn. You mentioned Go Rocket Ride, who got pulled out, a Richard Mandela horse. It just feels like a rather watered down group out there. And, Skinner, though, you figure he's going to be picking people off late. I mean, that's kind of his MO. He's going to be getting those horses that can't get the distance. He can get the distance. So he is going to be picking up horses late. The question is, can he get there? And I don't think he can get there to win. I might throw him in like underneath in a try or a super. Like I might throw him in that sort of a spot, just to add the argument of like, if things start to fall apart, like this is a horse that can close. He's going to like the 10 furlongs. I could talk myself into that. I think he might be a useful horse to use in deeper vertical exotics, but I think that's kind of the ceiling for a horse like Skinner. But I mean, that's not a bad ceiling, honestly. I mean, a lot of horses wish they could finish 3rd or 4th in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I see him more as another, one of those horses. I think his ceiling is probably like 6th or so. I can't put him into. I mean, I get it. He is close enough. And if you believe in Practical Move, I get believing in him. This is not to say that, I mean, the Derby is the Derby. It goes sideways sometimes. You get things like Rich Strike, some anomalies. But, I mean, if things go to plan for most of these horses, he's going to be sitting in a spot similar to, I think, 4 or 5 other horses that are just better than him. And I could be wrong, but I can't fall in love with him. I do think he's more of an intrigue than a lot of the bottom 5 horses, for example. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't put him in the bottom 5. I think him drawing in is interesting, because I think he's a mid-packer. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely intriguing. If you like Practical Move, man.
Well, here, I'll put you on the spot with a question. Who finishes in a better position, Practical Move or Skinner?
Wow, that's a good question. I think Skinner, just because I think Practical Move is going to be pressed a little bit, and I think he might end up running over his head. And I don't think either of them are going to be a factor on the board or a super. But yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I think they're both mid packers to me.
Yeah, I think Skinner outfinishes because listen, he nearly outfinished him at the Santa Anita Derby at 9 furlongs. You add another 1/8 of a mile onto that race, he's getting past him. Like that was
Practical Move looks like he's tired at the end of these races.
Yeah, he's toast at the end of 9 furlongs. He's not.
You're right. That's a good point. So yes, to answer your question, you just talked me into it, because I was kind of on the fence, but Skinner will. I think if there's unless Practical Move gets a perfect trip, that's it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, listen, very interesting horse. Obviously, Hombre, thank you for joining me to talk about this one. We'll see how Skinner does on Kentucky Derby Day. Listen, make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube to get all of our Kentucky Derby, Kentucky Oaks, live betting, handicapping content that we have for you all throughout the week. Make sure to press that like button and let us know below where you stand on Skinner drawing into this race and where you think he might finish in this year's Kentucky Derby. Until next time, friends, I'm Matthew DeSantis. That's El Hombre. Wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.